I'll go to the next sutta, 10.30. Once on a time, the Exalted One was staying near Savatthi in Jeta Grove in Anathapindika's park. On that occasion, the Raja, King Pasenadi of Kosala, had just returned from a sham fight, having been victorious and attained his object. Then the Raja or King turned in the direction of the park. So far as the cart road went, he rode in his chariot and then got down and reached the residence. Now at that time, a number of monks were walking up and down in the open air. Then Pasenadi, the Raja of Kosala, went towards those monks, and on reaching them, thus accosted them. Pray or please, your reverences, where now is the Exalted One staying, that Arahant, Sammasambuddha? I long to behold that Exalted One. And they said, yonder is his lodging, Maharaja, with the door shut. Do you go up quietly without nervousness. Enter the veranda, cough and rattle the door bar. The Exalted One will open the door to you. And just stop here to comment. This Buddha was a citizen of the country of Kosala, and the king of Kosala was Pasenadi. Sometimes people say that the Buddha's father was the king. That is not true. Buddha's father was not the king of the country. King of the country was Pasenadi king. Buddha's father was just a member of the warrior caste. Just like in this country, we have these tunkus and rajas. Not everyone is a sultan. Some of the tunkus can be poor. So in the same case, you have many people belonging to the warrior caste or the noble family, and the Buddha's father was just one of them. So this Pasenadi King Pasenadi, he was a disciple of the Buddha. So in his old age, he came to see the Buddha. Actually, there is a very similar sutta to this in the Majjhima Nikaya, middle length Discourses, and that is Majjhima Nikaya number 89, called the Dhammacettiya Sutta. There is a bit longer than the description here, and it's a very beautiful sutta. But this one, because it appears here, read it for you all to read or to understand also. So you see, if you want to see a monk, you go to his kuti or his hut, you hear the monks advise the king, you cough and rattle the door bar, or you knock. There are some people, they come to visit a monk, they, without knocking, without making any sound, they open the door and go in. It's a bit ill-mannered. It's good manners. You want to enter the kuti of a monk, you knock first, make some sound, cough and knock. So the Raja Pasenadi of Kosala went up to the lodging as he was told, coughed and rattled the door bar, and the Exalted One opened the door. Then Pasenadi the king entered the lodging, fell with his head at the feet of the Exalted One, kissed his feet and stroked them with his hands, and announced his name, saying, Sir, I am Pasenadi, the Raja of Kosala. Pasenadi, the Raja of Kosala, and I stop here for a moment. It is an Indian custom that when a lay person pays respect to a monk, he puts his head at the feet of the monk. Even some Sri Lankans also do that. Even in Malaysia, once in a long time, sometimes I meet an Indian lay person. Sometimes they also do this. They touch your feet with their head out of respect. So this king, he had such great respect for the Buddha. He put his head at the feet of the Buddha and stroked the Buddha's feet. Then the Buddha said, but Maharaja, seeing what significance therein do you show me this profound humility and pay such affectionate veneration to this body of mine? And he said, to show my gratitude, sir, to show my thankfulness to the Exalted One, do I show this profound humility and pay such affectionate veneration. So he said, to show my gratitude, sir, to show my thankfulness to the Exalted One, do I show this profound humility and pay such affectionate veneration. For the Exalted One, sir, is one who is set on the profit, on the happiness of many folk. He is one who establishes many folk in the Aryan knowledge, that is, conformity with the beneficial and good Dhamma. Inasmuch as the Exalted One is such a one, that, sir, is why I show my gratitude, my thankfulness in this way. Then again, sir, the Exalted One is virtuous. He has the Buddha virtues, the Aryan, the goodly virtues. He is possessed of the goodly virtues. That is another reason for my showing this profound humility. Again, sir, the Exalted One has for many a day been a forest dweller, a haunter of forest solitudes, resorting to the solitary lodging of the forest. That is another reason. Yet again, sir, the Exalted One is well content with whatever offerings of robes and alms food, lodging and bed, supply of medicines and requisites in sickness he may receive. That is another reason. And he is worshipful, worthy of honor, worthy of offerings, of salutations, with clasped hands. He is a field of merit, unsurpassed for the world. That, sir, is another reason. Yet again, sir, as regards talk that is serious, fit for opening up the mind, that is to say, talk about few wants, or wanting little, about contentment, about aloofness, about seclusion, putting forth energy, talk about virtue, concentration of mind, wisdom, liberation, knowledge and vision of liberation. Such talk as this, the Exalted One gives at pleasure, without pain and without stint or stinginess. Since the Exalted One does this, that is a further reason. Then again, sir, the Exalted One attains at pleasure, without pain and without trouble, the 4 jhanas of meditative absorption, which are of the higher mind, a happy abiding in this same visible lifetime. Since the Exalted One does this, that is a further reason. Again, sir, the Exalted One can recall his manifold previous lifetimes. Thus, 1 birth, 2 births, 3, 10, 100, up to 100,000 births. Likewise, through the diverse contracting world cycles, the diverse expanding world cycles, the diverse contracting and expanding world cycles. Remembering, at that time I had such a name, was of such a family, of such complexion, so supported, thus and thus experiencing weal and woe, of such and such a lifespan. I, thus deceasing, rose up again at that time. There too I had such a name, was of such a family, of such complexion, etc. Thus with all detail and characteristics, he can recall his manifold previous lifetimes. Since the Exalted One does this, that is another reason. Then again, sir, the Exalted One with the heavenly eye, purified and surpassing that of men, beholds beings deceasing and rising up again, beings both mean and excellent, fair and foul, gone to a happy rebirth, gone to an ill rebirth according to their deeds. Thus, these beings given to the practice of evil deeds, of evil words, of evil thoughts, scoffing at the Aryans, of perverted view, and reaping the fruit of their perverted view. These beings, when body broke up beyond death, rose up again in the waste, the ill-born, the downfall, in hell. Or those beings given to the practice of good deeds, of good words, of good thoughts, not scoffing at the Aryans, but of sound view, and reaping the fruit of their sound view. These beings, when body broke up beyond death, rose up again in the happy born, in the heaven world. Thus with the heavenly eye, purified and surpassing that of man, he beholds beings. Since the Exalted One does this, that is another reason. Yet again, sir, by the destruction of the asavas, the exalted one in this same visible life attains the liberation by mind, the liberation by wisdom, himself acquiring it by his own comprehension and realizing it abides therein. Since the exalted one does so, seeing this significance, do I thus show this profound humility and pay such affectionate veneration to the exalted one. Well now, sir, we must be going. We are busy folk and have much to do. And the Buddha said, do what seems appropriate to you, Maharaja. So Pasenadi, the Raja of Kosala, rising from his seat, saluted the exalted one, and keeping his right towards him, he departed. That's the end of the sutta. So here, this sutta is about how the king had such great respect for the Buddha, and he gave all the reasons why he had such great respect for the Buddha. In the Majjhima Nikaya, Sutta 89, it is slightly different, and that sutta is a little bit more comprehensive than this one. Now we come to Anguttara Nikaya, Sutta 10.31. Now the Venerable Upali came to see the Exalted One, and on coming to him, saluted him and sat down at one side. So seated, he said this to the Exalted One, please, sir, with what object in view was the training enjoined or imposed on the disciples of the Tathagata and the Patimokkha pronounced? I just stop here for a moment to comment. This Upali was one of the senior disciples of the Buddha, and he was supposed to be the most knowledgeable in the Vinaya, the disciplinary code for monks or nuns. And this training, Sikkhapada, normally refers to the training of the Noble Eightfold Path. So it includes sila, moral conduct or the precepts, and then also concentration and wisdom. But usually Sikkhapada is more training, is more on the precepts. And this Buddha here is mentioned Tathagata. Tathagata is one of the terms for the Buddha, thus gone one. And the Patimokkha refers to the 227 precepts of a monk. So he is asking what is the object of making the Patimokkha, all these 227 precepts for the monks. And the Buddha said, it was done with 10 objects in view, Upali. What 10? For the excellence of the Sangha, there is the Bhikkhu Sangha, the monks order. For the well-being of the Sangha, for the control of ill-conditioned monks and the comfort of well-behaved monks, for the restraint of the asavas in this same visible state or life, for protection against the asavas in a future lifetime, to give confidence to those with little confidence, to give more confidence to those with confidence, to establish true Dhamma, and to support the Vinaya, monastic discipline. These Upali are the 10 objects in view of which the training was enjoined or imposed on the Tathagata's disciples and the Patimokkha pronounced. So, stop here for a moment. So basically, it was for the well-being of the Sangha and for the control of the badly behaved monks, and for the, here it says, restraint of the asavas. Asavas refers to the uncontrolled mental outflows. Our mind tends to flow, and this gives us a lot of suffering. And this flowing is what normally we say the like stray thoughts, Ta Wang Xiang in Chinese. We think of this, we think of that. The mind is always leaking. And this tendency of these asavas to flow is so strong that every night when we go to sleep, we dream. It's still the mind flowing. So when we meditate, it is ultimately to stop the mind from flowing. Because when the mind flows, it is consciousness flowing also. Ultimately, it is consciousness flowing. And it is consciousness that creates the whole world. So if we stop the mind from flowing by meditating, making the mind one-pointed, and the mind becomes one-pointed, it does not flow. You fix your mind on one object, it does not flow. Then slowly you are able to make it stop flowing. And then when the mind stops flowing completely, a person becomes an arahant. That is a definition of an arahant, when he has destroyed the asavas. So, for the restraint of the asavas, or protection against the asavas in a future lifetime, to give confidence to those with little confidence, to give more confidence to those with confidence, to establish the true Dhamma and the Vinaya. And then the Venerable Upali asked again, "Pray, sir, what is the nature of the suspension of the Patimokkha?" And the Buddha said, "The suspension of the Patimokkha, Upali, is of 10 sorts." What 10? When a transgressor or parajiko is seated in that company, when debate about the transgressor is unfinished, when a person not fully ordained is seated in that company, when debate about such a one is unfinished, when one who has renounced the training is seated in that company, when debate on that subject is finished, when a eunuch, or eunuch means a frustrated person, is seated in that company, when debate about such a one is unfinished, when one who has seduced a nun is seated in that company, when debate about such a one is unfinished. These are the 10 suspensions of the Patimokkha. That's the end of the sutta. What do you mean by suspension of the Patimokkha? For a monk, a bhikkhu, he is supposed to recite the Patimokkha, all the precepts, once in every 2 weeks. On the 15th day of the lunar calendar and the 30th, the last day of the lunar calendar. If there is no 30, then it's 29. So these are the 2 days when the monks come together and recite the Patimokkha or the precepts. So when they are reciting the precepts, if something happens, they have to suspend the Patimokkha, they stop the reciting. One is when a person who has broken the most serious precept, a monk who has broken the most serious precept. The most serious precept is called the parajika. Parajika, a person has committed, a monk has committed a parajika if he does a few things, 4 things. One is if he engages in sexual intercourse. Number 2, if he steals something of great value. Number 3, if he kills a person. Number 4, if he lies about supernormal attainment, and it is not an Arya, he lies that he is an Arya. Or he has not attained jhana, he claims that he has attained jhana. So, if a monk of that sort is seated with the other pure monks, they will stop reciting the Parajika. And then when debate about him is unfinished, also they stop. And then when a person not fully ordained, that means a person who is not a fully ordained monk, a bhikkhu, is seated, also they will stop reciting. When debate about this is unfinished, also they stop. The one who has renounced the training, one who has disrobed, is seated there, and also they stop. When debate about this is unfinished, when a eunuch is a castrated man seated in that company, also they stop. When debate about this is unfinished, when one who has seduced a nun is seated there, also they stop. And when debate about such a one is unfinished. So these are the various occasions when the Patimokkha is stopped. Now another sutta, 10.44. Once the Exalted One was staying at Kusinara in the wood of offerings. On that occasion, the Exalted One addressed the monks, saying, "Monks." "Yes, sir," replied those monks to the Exalted One, who said this. "Monks, a monk who desires to admonish or advise another monk should do so after investigation of 5 conditions in his own self and after setting up 5 conditions in his own self. What are the 5 conditions he should investigate in his own self? A monk who desires to admonish another must thus investigate, am I or am I not one who practices utter purity in body? Am I or am I not possessed of utter purity in body, flawless and untainted? Is this quality manifest in me or is it not? If he not be so, there are found folk who say to him, 'Come now, let your reverence practice conduct as to body.' Folk are found to speak thus. Again, monks, a monk who desires to admonish another should thus investigate, am I or am I not one who practices utter purity in speech, flawless and untainted? Is this quality manifest in me or is it not? If he not be so, there are found folk who say to him, 'Come now, let your reverence practice conduct as to speech.' Folk are found to speak thus. Again, monks, a monk who desires to admonish another should thus investigate, is a mind of goodwill, free from malice, established in me towards my fellows in the holy life? Is this quality manifest in me or is it not? If it not be so, there are found folk who say to him, 'Come now, let your reverence practice the mind of goodwill.' Folk are found to speak thus. Then again, monks, a monk who desires to admonish another should thus investigate, am I or am I not one who has heard much, who bears in mind what he has heard, who hoards up what he has heard, those teachings which, lovely at the beginning, the middle and the end, proclaim in the spirit and in the letter, the all fulfilled, utterly purified holy life. Have such teachings been much heard by me, borne in mind, practiced in speech, pondered in the heart, and rightly penetrated by view? Is this quality manifest in me or is it not? Then monks, if he be not one who has heard much, etc., if those teachings have not been rightly penetrated by view, then folk are found to say to him, 'Come now, let your reverence complete knowledge of the agamas.' Folk are bound to speak thus. Again, monks, I just stop here for a moment. These agamas refers to the earliest 4 collections of discourses of the Buddha. In other words, the Digha Nikaya, long discourses, Majjhima Nikaya, middle-length discourses, Samyutta Nikaya, and Anguttara Nikaya. Again, monks, a monk who desires to admonish another should thus investigate, are the Patimokkha's in full, thoroughly learned by heart, well analyzed with thorough knowledge of the meaning, clearly divided section by section and in minute detail by me? Is this condition manifest in me or is it not? For if not, there are found folk who say to him, 'But where was this said by the Exalted One, your reverence?' When thus questioned, he cannot explain. Then there will be those who say, 'Come now, let your reverence train himself in the Vinaya.' There will be found folk who speak thus. These 5 conditions must be investigated in his own self. And what 5 conditions must be set up in his own self? He considers, do I speak in season or not? Do I speak of facts or not? Gently or harshly? Do I speak words fraught with profit or not? With a kindly heart or inwardly malicious? These 5 conditions he must set up in his own self. Monks, these 5 conditions are to be investigated in his own self, and these 5 other conditions are to be set up in his own self by a monk who desires to admonish another. That's the end of the sutta. So here, the sutta is saying that if a monk wants to criticize another monk, he should see whether he has these 5 qualities. First, he must be pure in body, his body conduct must be pure. Secondly, his verbal conduct must be pure. Thirdly, he should have a mind of goodwill or metta, and not anger towards his brothers in the holy life, other monks. Number 4, he should be one who has heard much, who is very familiar with the Dhamma, the discourses of the Buddha. Then number 5, he should be very familiar with the Vinaya, the precepts, the monastic discipline. So he must have these conditions, and then he should set up 5 other conditions. Number 1, he must speak in season, that means speak at the right time. Sometimes you want to criticize another person. If you speak at the wrong time, the other person may not accept. So number 1, you must speak at the right time. Number 2, you must speak of facts. That means you must speak the truth. Number 3, you must speak gently. Number 4, you must speak words of benefit. Words of benefit to the other person. Number 5, you must have a kind heart. You speak with a kind heart, not with a lot of anger. So these are the 5 conditions he must set up in his own self. These are basically for a monk, but sometimes lay people, when you hear this kind of sutta, and you want to criticize your friend, also you must remember these conditions. You must speak in the right time, you must speak only of facts, you must speak gently, and then you must speak beneficial words, and then you must speak with a kind heart.